Surveillance is supposed to feel controlled. You set your position, establish distance, track movement, document patterns, and let the subject reveal themselves over time. That is what makes certain private investigator cases so disturbing. Not because they begin with obvious danger, but because they begin with ordinary assignments. A routine infidelity check, a standard missing person, a clean background investigation, and then shift without warning into something the process cannot explain fast enough. A subject moves in ways that don't align with intent. A timeline holds together until you look at it twice. A record exists, but nothing behind it does. And the worst part is how the mind tries to correct it in real time. It tells you the subject is just cautious. The route changes are coincidence. The witness misremembered. The timestamps are off. The footage is out of sync. The reference is rehearsed. The data hasn't updated yet. Because the alternative is harder to accept. That some people are not avoiding surveillance. They are controlling it. That some identities don't break under scrutiny. They adapt to it. And that once a case stops reacting to your investigation and starts anticipating it, you are no longer the one in control. Tonight's stories follow 3 private investigators working cases that should have stayed routine. Elton Buick, tracing the disappearance of a young woman outside Las Vegas, where confirmed sightings begin to overlap, and every witness who sees her is paid to tell the truth. Vincent Capone, conducting a domestic surveillance case in Orlando, where a suspected affair reveals something far more structured, and the subject begins adjusting to the investigation before it's ever acknowledged. And John Jones, verifying a financial background in Tampa, where a complete identity holds up under every check, but nothing about it can be traced back to where it started. Because the most disturbing private investigator cases are not always about what you uncover. Sometimes they are about what continues to exist no matter how closely you examine it. Sometimes they are about when observation stops being one-sided. And sometimes they begin with a process that feels completely reliable, right up until the moment the case starts documenting you instead. Tonight, these are private investigator horror stories, and all 3 begin with a case that should have been routine. Story 1. The missing girl paid in cash. I usually know within the first 10 minutes whether a missing person case is really a missing person case. That sounds cold if you have never sat across from a parent who hasn't slept in 4 days, but it is the truth. Some people disappear because they want to. Some people disappear because the life they built has finally collapsed under them. Some are hiding from debt, drugs, warrants, spouses, employers, or shame. Some leave a phone behind so the police will take it seriously. Some take the phone because they do not want to be found. And some disappear in a way that leaves no human shape around the absence. That was how I felt the first time I met Marlene Voss. She came to my office on a Wednesday afternoon in July, wearing a gray cardigan in 100-degree heat, holding a manila folder against her chest like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I had an office then on the west side of Las Vegas, not far from a bail bonds place, a tax preparer, and a massage parlor that changed names every 6 months. My name is Elton Buick. I'm a licensed private investigator. Before that, I spent years in law enforcement, though I don't usually specify where or how long unless a client needs reassurance. People hear former law enforcement and fill in whatever version makes them comfortable. Detective, patrol, federal, local. It never matters as much as they think it does. Marlene sat across from me and slid the folder forward. "My daughter's name is Kelsey," she said. I opened the folder. Kelsey Voss was 26 years old. Brown hair, thin face, green eyes. A small crescent scar beneath her left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident, according to her mother. She had worked promotional events, bottle service, private parties, and brand-hosted gatherings around Las Vegas for the last 4 years. The last confirmed job was a private event outside the city, east of Henderson, near a stretch of desert where construction roads ran out into scrub and rock. "She called me at 8:16 that night," Marlene said. "She said the event was weird." "What did she mean by weird?" I asked. "She said there weren't many guests. Mostly staff. Men in black shirts. No phones out. No one drinking. She said the house looked rented." "Did she sound scared?" Marlene looked at the folder. Not me. She sounded like she was trying not to. That line stayed with me. Kelsey's phone last pinged near the event property at 11:42 p.m. Her car was later found in a gas station lot on Boulder Highway. Locked. No purse inside. No signs of a struggle. The responding officer entered it as a suspicious but low-priority adult disappearance. Kelsey had no minor children, no known medical condition, and no immediate evidence of force. That meant Marlene had been told to wait. She waited 48 hours before hiring me. I started where I always start, with the last known version of the person. Kelsey's apartment was in a gated complex near Paradise. Clean, but not staged. Laundry in the dryer, makeup on the bathroom counter, a half-empty bottle of cold brew in the fridge, a pair of silver heels near the front door. Nothing packed. No missing suitcase, according to Marlene. Passport still in a drawer. Laptop on the kitchen table. Her calendar showed the booking under a private event label. LV Meridian Hospitality. Brand activation. Off-site. That name led nowhere. No active business license. No website. No state registration matching the exact phrasing. The email address used to book her was dead by the time I checked it, and the payment had come through a third-party staffing intermediary that claimed they had only processed the contractor list. That part wasn't strange by itself. Vegas runs on temporary names. Companies appear for one event, vanish by Monday, then reappear under a new LLC 3 months later. But the location bothered me. I drove out there near sunset. The property was a modern rental house set back from the road, all concrete angles and tinted windows, the kind of place designed to look expensive in photos and empty in person. A locked gate blocked the driveway. Beyond it, desert stretched out flat and colorless, with power lines cutting the sky and the strip far behind me like someone else's hallucination. There were no cameras visible from the road, no neighbors close enough to notice anything unless they were trying. I parked across from the gate and took my first set of photos. At 7:03 p.m., a white box truck rolled past me, slowed, then continued east. At 7:11 p.m., a black Escalade turned into the driveway, stopped at the gate, then reversed back out when it did not open. I photographed the plate. Rental. The next morning, I visited the gas station where Kelsey's car had been found. The attendant on duty was a young man named Omar, with tired eyes and one earbud hanging loose from his shirt collar. He remembered the car because it had sat at pump 4 for 6 hours before anyone called it in. "Did you see who parked it?" I asked. Omar shook his head. "We were slammed until midnight. After that, I noticed it there, but I figured someone got picked up." "Cameras?" He hesitated. "Owner handles that." The owner was not there, but $100 and my license got me 30 minutes in the back office 2 days later. The footage showed Kelsey's car pulling into the gas station at 12:18 a.m. The driver wore a pale jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. Wrong height, wrong build. Not Kelsey. The driver parked, stepped out, wiped the steering wheel with something white, then walked off frame toward the road. That should have turned the case. It did not. When I sent the clip summary to the detective assigned to Kelsey's file, he gave me the response I expected. "Could be someone she knew," Detective Harris said over the phone. "Could be she loaned the vehicle. Could be unrelated. You have someone wiping the steering wheel." "I have a person touching a steering wheel," Harris replied. He wasn't dismissing me. He was conserving energy. Departments drown in missing adults, and until a body or a clear crime appears, every case sits in a gray room where urgency dies by inches. So I kept working. The first sighting came from a cocktail server named Blair Fenwick. She worked at a lounge near the Arts District. She said Kelsey came in 2 nights after she vanished, wearing a black dress and a denim jacket. "She looked tired," Blair said. "Not drunk, not high, just tired." "Did you speak to her?" "Only for a second." I said, "Kels, where have you been?" She looked right through me. Then this guy with her paid cash, and they left. "What guy?" "Older, maybe 50, gray hair. Expensive watch." "Did she seem scared?" Blair rubbed her thumb along the edge of her phone case. "She seemed empty." I asked if she had been paid to tell me that. Her face changed. Not enough for someone else to notice, but enough for me. "Who said anything about paid?" she asked. I let the silence answer. She finally opened her purse and took out $300 in 20s, folded once and wrapped with a receipt from a convenience store. "He gave me that after," she said quietly. He said if anyone asked, I should tell the truth. What was the truth? That I saw her. I photographed the bills. Then I asked the question that made her stop looking at me. Did he tell you I would come? Blair did not answer. The second sighting came from a rideshare driver named Milton Rakes. He said he picked up Kelsey outside a motel near Fremont Street at 3:40 in the morning, 3 days after the event. He remembered her because she paid cash at the end, even though the ride was booked through the app by someone else. She sat behind me, Milton said. Didn't say much. Asked if I could turn the radio off. Where did you drop her? Near a storage place in Henderson. Alone? She got in alone. Got out alone. I checked his app history. The ride existed. Pickup and drop off were real. I checked a traffic camera near the motel through a contact who owed me a favor. At 3:38 in the morning, a woman matching Kelsey's description stepped out from beneath the motel awning. Brown hair, denim jacket, black dress. She turned her face toward the streetlight just long enough for the camera to catch the scar beneath her eyebrow. I watched that frame for a long time. Then I compared it to another timestamp. At 3:41 in the morning, 3 minutes after the pickup, Kelsey appeared on security footage at a convenience store 12 miles away. Same clothes, same jacket, same scar. Different camera angle, different part of town, same impossible calm. I played both clips side by side until my eyes hurt. People like to imagine fear as a sharp thing, a scream, a slammed door, a shape in the hallway. Real fear, the kind that stays with you, often comes as math that refuses to work. 3 minutes, 12 miles, one woman. The third sighting came from a maintenance worker at a short-term rental complex south of the airport. His name was Luis Ortega, and he told me Kelsey had been sitting beside the pool at dawn, barefoot, with her hands folded in her lap. Was she alone? I asked. Yes, Luis said. But not like alone. What does that mean? He stared past me toward the lot. It felt like someone had just stepped away. He had not reported it. He said she left before he could decide whether to ask if she needed help. Then, as I was packing my notes, Luis said, "A man came by later." What man? Same day, maybe afternoon. Asked if anyone had asked about a girl. I said no. You lied? Luis looked ashamed. He gave me money. How much? 500. Did he tell you what to say if someone came? Luis nodded. He said, "Describe what you saw. Nothing more." The bills were in his glove compartment. I photographed them too. By then, the cash had become its own trail. Not because the denominations were unusual. They weren't. 20s, 50s, hundreds. Circulated bills. Vegas is full of cash, most of it dirty in ways no one cares to define. But Marlene had given me photographs of Kelsey's belongings from the police inventory. Kelsey's purse had not been in the car, but a small personal lockbox had been recovered from her apartment. Inside were emergency cash bundles she kept from event work, each wrapped with a paper band where she had written the amount and date. Marlene had photographed everything before police took the lockbox for documentation. I enlarged the photos. The serial numbers on the top bills were visible. Then I compared them to the bills paid to Blair, Milton, and Lewis. Not exact matches at first, but close. Same series, same ranges. Same branch distribution. That can happen. Bills circulate. Cash moves. So I called a retired financial crimes analyst I knew, named Diane Cho. I sent her the images, the serials, and a carefully worded question. She called me back 40 minutes later. "Elton," Diane said, "where did you get these?" "Witness payments." "And where did the control set come from?" "Missing woman's lockbox." There was a pause. "These aren't just close," she said. "A few are sequential." "How many?" "Enough that I would not call it random." I did not tell Marlene yet. That is one of the hardest parts of this work. Clients think every update belongs to them because they are paying for it. They are not always wrong, but raw information can destroy people before it becomes useful. I needed more. I built a timeline across my office wall. Kelsey's confirmed last job, phone ping, vehicle drop, Blair's lounge sighting, Milton's rideshare pickup, convenience store footage, Luis at the rental complex. Storage facility camera, gas station, motel, pool, streetlight. Every point had a time. Every time created a problem. The more I worked, the less it looked like Kelsey was moving through the city. It looked like the city was being seeded with versions of her. Not impersonators, exactly. That would have made more sense. Hire women with similar builds, give them her clothes, make sure they show the scar, pay people to confirm sightings, muddy the timeline, keep police chasing voluntary disappearance theories. But the footage was too good. Not perfect. Good. The woman in the motel footage had Kelsey's posture. She walked with the slight inward turn of the right foot that Marlene had mentioned from an old ankle injury. The woman at the convenience store reached for the door with her left hand, then switched to her right before pulling it open. Marlene cried when I asked about that. She always did that, she said, since she was little, like she changed her mind halfway through. I should not have shown her the still frame, but I needed confirmation. Marlene touched the printed image with 2 fingers. "That's my daughter," she said. I did not answer, because by then, I no longer knew what that meant. The final lead came from a casino employee named Priya Shah. She worked overnight security at an off-strip property where the cameras were better than they needed to be because the casino had been fined twice for compliance issues. Priya had seen the missing person flyer Marlene posted online and recognized Kelsey from a service hallway camera. "She didn't come through the casino floor," Priya said. "That's why I remembered. Guests don't use that hallway." "When was this?" "Last Friday, 2:12 in the morning. That was 9 days after Kelsey vanished." Priya brought me into a small office behind security where 6 monitors showed different parts of the property in cold blue light. The clip loaded slowly. The hallway was narrow, beige, and overlit. A staff corridor with pipes along the ceiling and scuffed baseboards. Kelsey entered from the left. She wore the same denim jacket, same black dress, same face. But something was wrong with her timing. She moved too evenly. Not slow, not fast. Just consistent, like each step had been measured before she took it. Halfway down the hall, she stopped and looked directly into the camera. Not up at it. Into it. People can accidentally glance at cameras. They look for domes in ceilings, mirrors, motion sensors, anything reflective. This was not that. She looked at the lens the way a person looks through a peephole after knocking. Then she lifted her right hand. Between 2 fingers, she held a folded bill. She placed it on the hallway floor. Then she walked out of frame. I asked Priya to rewind. She did. I watched it again. "Did anyone collect the bill?" I asked. Priya nodded slowly. "That's the other thing." The video jumped ahead. At 2:19 in the morning, a man in a dark maintenance uniform entered the hall. He bent down, picked up the bill, and turned toward the camera. I knew him, not his name, his face. He was the gray-haired man from Blair's description, expensive watch. He held the bill up to the camera for 1 second. Then he folded it into his palm and left. "Do you know him?" I asked. Priya shook her head. "He didn't work here." "Did you give this to police?" "I called. They said to send it. I did." "When?" "Saturday morning." That was 5 days earlier. Detective Harris had not mentioned it. I asked Priya to export the clip. She did, but the file failed twice. On the 3rd attempt, it saved with no audio, even though the hallway had no audio to begin with. I remember that because Priya laughed nervously and said, "Guess it didn't want to leave." I did not laugh. On my way back to the office, I checked my mirrors more than usual. It was just past midnight. The strip glowed behind me in pinks and golds, all that money pretending to be sunrise. East of it, the city flattened into warehouses, tire shops, apartment blocks, and washes where floodwater had carved pale scars through the dirt. At a red light, I looked down at the flash drive in my cup holder. A white sedan pulled up beside me. I noticed it because the windows were too dark. The passenger window lowered halfway. No one spoke. A hand extended out. It held a folded bill. The light changed. I drove. The sedan did not follow. Back at my office, I locked the door and pulled the blinds. The flash drive worked on my laptop. The clip from the casino played clean. Kelsey entered the hallway, looked into the lens, placed the bill down, left. The gray-haired man collected it. I paused on his face, Then I zoomed in on the bill. The serial number was visible. I compared it to Marlene's inventory photographs. It matched. Not a range, not a branch. It matched exactly. The same bill had been photographed in Kelsey's lockbox 6 days after she disappeared, according to the evidence timestamp Marlene had provided. 6 days after. But the casino clip was recorded 3 days after that. I sat there listening to the air conditioner rattle in the ceiling, feeling the kind of silence that settles when a room has stopped being empty. At 1:37 in the morning, my office phone rang. No caller ID. I let it ring 4 times. Then I answered. "Elton Buick," I said. For several seconds, there was only a faint line hiss. Then, a woman spoke. Not loud, not whispering. "Elton," she said. I did not move. "Who is this?" I asked. "You found enough," she said. It sounded like Kelsey. Not a recording exactly, not clean enough. There was something wrong at the edges, as if the voice had been copied too many times and smoothed over. "Where are you?" I asked. The line clicked. Then the call ended. I checked the phone log. No number. I checked the recorder. I kept patched into the office line. The file existed. 12 seconds. I played it back. My voice came through clearly. "Elton Buick." Then silence. Then my voice again. "Who is this?" Then silence. Then my voice. "Where are you?" Kelsey's voice was not on the recording. I did not sleep that night. In the morning, I prepared a packet for Detective Harris. Timeline, footage stills, witness statements, payment photos, serial comparisons, and a written summary that avoided words like impossible. I used phrases that could survive a desk review. Temporal inconsistency, identity confirmation conflict, potential stage sightings, organized witness manipulation, evidence currency discrepancy. I printed everything, 2 copies, one for Harris and Marlene. At 10:12 in the morning, before I left, someone pushed an envelope through the mail slot in my office door. It slid across the floor and stopped against the leg of a chair. Plain white, no postage, no return address. My name was written across the front in block letters. I did not touch it at first. I looked through the blinds. The walkway outside was empty. The tax preparer next door had not opened yet. The bail bonds place had a man smoking out front, but he was looking at his phone. I put on gloves and picked up the envelope. Inside was cash, $20 bills, $50 bills, hundreds, bundled, clean. A folded note sat in the middle, 2 words, "Case closed." I photographed everything before touching the money. Then I checked the serial numbers. The first bill matched one paid to Blair. The second matched a bill visible in the casino hallway. The third matched Kelsey's lockbox inventory. The fourth matched a bill from Luis Ortega's glove compartment. Not similar. Matched. I called Diane Cho. She listened quietly as I read the serials. "Elton," she said. "That's not circulation." "I know." "No, I don't think you do. If these were documented in separate places, on separate dates, then one of those records is false. I have photographs. Then more than one record is false." I looked at the envelope. "Or the dates are." Diane did not respond for a moment. Then she said, "You need to stop talking to me about this." She hung up. I drove to the police station anyway. Halfway there, Marlene called. Her voice sounded hollow. "She came home," Marlene said. "I pulled into a gas station lot." "What?" "Kelsey. She came home." "When?" 20 minutes ago. She was at the door." "Is she there now?" Marlene began crying, but not the way people cry from relief. "No," she said. "She wasn't right." "What happened?" "She stood there and said she was sorry. I tried to hold her, but she stepped back. She said I shouldn't have hired you. My mouth went dry. Did you call police?" "She left before I could." "Elton, she gave me something." "What did she give you?" "A receipt." "For what?" Marlene inhaled sharply. "For your payment." I told her to lock her doors and wait for me. Then I checked the timestamp on the newest file in my case folder. It was a still from the casino hallway, exported by Priya. 2:12 in the morning Friday. Then I opened the photo Marlene texted me. It was a receipt from a courier service. Delivery scheduled to my office. The tracking entry showed the envelope had been accepted at 9:44 in the morning, signed by K. Voss. That was not possible. At 9:44 in the morning, according to Marlene, Kelsey had been standing on her mother's porch across town. And according to the evidence record I was now staring at, the exact cash inside the envelope had already been documented days earlier in a lockbox, a glove compartment, a casino hallway, and my own office. There are moments in investigative work when the next correct action is obvious. Call police, preserve evidence, notify the client, secure the scene, write everything down. Then, there are moments when procedure becomes a door you no longer trust. I sat in my car with the air conditioning blowing hot for the first few seconds, looking at my own hands on the steering wheel. A white sedan pulled into the lot across from me. The windows were too dark. It parked beside Pump 4, the same pump where Kelsey's car had been left. No one got out. My phone rang again. No caller ID. I let it ring until it stopped. Then a text came through from Marlene. It was a photo of her front porch. Empty. On the welcome mat was a single folded bill. Below the image, Marlene had typed. She said this was for telling the truth. I drove back to my office. I did not go to the station. I did not send the packet. I placed the envelope, the cash, the note, and every printed page into a locked file box. Then I removed the digital copies from my working drive and stored the originals offline. I told myself I was preserving the case. That was not the whole truth. The truth is, by then, I understood the message. Someone, or something, was not hiding Kelsey's disappearance. It was maintaining her, across cameras, across witnesses, across receipts, across money that could not stay in one place or one time. Every person who saw her was paid to say exactly what they saw, nothing more. And somehow, that was the worst part. No one had been told to lie. The case remains closed in my files. Not solved. Closed. There is a difference. A month later, I received one final item. No envelope this time. Just a voicemail left on my office line at 3 a.m. When I played it, I heard casino hallway noise, fluorescent hum, distant footsteps, and then Kelsey's voice, clearer than before. "Elton," she said, "thank you for stopping." After that came another sound, paper sliding across tile. Then a man's voice. Older, calm, close to the microphone. "Describe what you saw," he said. The recording ended. I deleted it from the machine. But I wrote the words down first, because that is what investigators do, even when the report never gets submitted. Story 2. Subject exhibited counter-surveillance. I learned how to watch people before I ever had a private investigator's license. Not in some dramatic way, not from a police academy or a military unit or anything that makes a good story at a bar. I learned it standing under fluorescent lights in Walmart, watching cameras, reading body language, tracking patterns most people thought were invisible. My name is Vincent Capone. I'm 31 years old, born in Baltimore, Maryland, and before I got into private investigation work, I was an asset protection operations manager for Walmart. That meant I spent years watching people pretend they were not doing what they were obviously doing. A man walking too slowly through electronics with an empty cart. A woman circling the same cosmetics aisle while checking reflections in the security mirrors. A group splitting up, one drawing attention while the other worked the locked cases. Theft was rarely about the item. It was about rhythm, timing, confidence, the way someone controlled space. When I moved to Orlando and started working private investigations, I thought that experience would carry over cleanly. In some ways, it did. People still lied with their shoulders before they lied with their mouths. People still checked exits when they felt cornered. People still thought changing direction suddenly made them unpredictable. But private work had one difference I did not respect enough at first. In retail, the subject usually did not know your name. In the field, if you watched the wrong person long enough, they could learn everything about you. The case came in on a Monday morning, late August, the kind of Florida morning where the air feels wet before the sun is fully up. My office was small, second floor of a commercial building near Colonial Drive, above a chiropractor and across from a tax service that had a blinking neon sign even during daylight. The client was named Tessa Marin. She was 29, a dental office coordinator from Winter Park. She arrived 10 minutes early and apologized for being early, which told me she had rehearsed the meeting in her head. She wore beige scrubs under a cardigan and kept her phone face down on the desk like it might interrupt her if she looked at it. "My boyfriend is cheating," she said. "Most people say they think," Tessa said. "Is what makes you certain?" I asked. She swallowed. "He leaves at night. Not every night, but enough. He says it's business." "What kind of business?" She looked embarrassed. "That's the thing. I don't really know." I waited. "He told me he handles logistics, private contracts, warehousing, delivery stuff. He has money. Not crazy money, but enough. He pays cash, a lot. He has 2 phones. Sometimes he'll step outside to take calls, even if we're at dinner." "What's his name?" "Malik Dorsey." She slid a photo across the desk. Malik was in his mid-30s, trimmed beard, strong build, calm eyes. He wore a black polo in the picture, standing beside Tessa at what looked like a birthday dinner, one arm around her waist. Clean watch, no visible tattoos. The kind of guy who looked normal because he understood the value of looking normal. "How long have you been together?" I asked. 14 months. "Do you live together?" "No. He stays at my place sometimes. I've never stayed at his." That mattered. "Why not?" "He says he has roommates, business partners, people always coming through." I wrote that down. "You have an address for him?" She gave me one in Pine Hills. "Vehicle. Black Charger. Sometimes a silver Tahoe. I don't know if both are his." "Any history of violence?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. Then she added, "Not with me." I looked up. "What does that mean?" She stared at the edge of my desk. "He doesn't yell. He doesn't hit me. But people listen when he talks. Like they're afraid not to." That was the first honest thing she said. I explained the scope. Domestic surveillance. No GPS tracker, unless legally permissible under Florida law, and with proper ownership conditions. No trespassing. No pretexting into protected accounts. We could document public movements, vehicles, locations, associates, and behavior. Tessa nodded through all of it. "I just need to know if there's someone else," she said. I should have told her then that people rarely hire investigators because they need to know. They hire us because part of them already does. I began that Wednesday. Malik's listed address was a single-story rental on a quiet street with chain-link fences, trimmed lawns, and cars parked nose out in driveways. I set up from a position down the block beneath the shade of a live oak, camera resting low, not pointed directly until needed. At 6:42 p.m., Malik exited the house wearing a gray t-shirt and jeans. He carried no bag. He got into the black Charger and pulled away. His driving was smooth, not fast, not slow. He used turn signals, maintained distance, and never made the obvious mistake of constantly checking mirrors. That put me at ease for the first 20 minutes. People hiding affairs usually have tells. They stop at liquor stores, hotel lots, apartment complexes, restaurants outside their normal radius. They park far from entrances. They sit in their cars texting too long. Malik did none of that. He drove to a storage facility off Silver Star Road. He entered with a gate code. I parked across the street near a closed tire shop and photographed the Charger through the fence. 10 minutes later, a white Ford Transit van exited the facility. Malik was driving it. That was irregular, but not alarming. The van went to a strip plaza where half the units were vacant. Malik parked behind a closed tax office. 2 men arrived in a Nissan Altima. They spoke for less than 90 seconds. One man handed Malik a padded envelope. Malik handed him a black duffel bag from the van. No affection, no argument, no wasted movement. At 8:16 p.m., Malik drove the van back to the storage facility. At 8:29, he exited in the Charger. At 8:57, he was at Tessa's apartment. She texted me at 9:03. "He just got here. Did you see anything?" I did not answer right away. That was one rule I learned early. Clients want live reactions. Investigators need complete patterns. I sent back. "I have initial movement documented. Need additional nights before conclusions." She replied instantly. "Was he with a woman?" I typed, "No evidence of that tonight." The next 2 nights expanded the shape of it. Malik rotated vehicles the way some people rotate shirts. black Charger, silver Tahoe, white van, a blue Camry with temporary tags, a dark green pickup registered to a lawn care company that had no website, no reviews, and no visible equipment in the bed. He visited storage facilities, vacant storefronts, a rental house near Apopka, and an auto body shop with no posted hours. Every stop lasted between 8 and 20 minutes. Every meeting happened near an exit, never deep inside a property. The people he met arrived separately and left separately. Nobody hugged, nobody lingered, nobody looked confused. By Friday night, I was no longer treating it like a cheating case. I had worked enough retail theft cases to recognize organized behavior, not the street-level chaos people imagine. Real organization is quiet. It turns places into temporary rooms. A parking lot becomes an office. A storage unit becomes a transfer point. A dead storefront becomes a checkpoint. I sat in my car outside a closed laundromat off Orange Blossom Trail at 11:42 p.m., watching Malik stand under a weak yellow security light with 3 men around him. Rain had started lightly, turning the windshield into a shifting layer of glass. My camera struggled through it. One of the men opened a cardboard box. Malik looked inside, closed it, and nodded once. The box went into the Tahoe. That was all. No threat. No drama. Just business. The next morning, Tessa called. "I can't do this all weekend," she said. "Please, just tell me." "There's no evidence of infidelity so far," I said. She exhaled, but it was not relief. "Then, what is he doing?" "I'm still documenting." "Vincent." I heard her office in the background. Phones. A printer. Someone laughing too loudly. "What is it?" I asked. "He came over last night, after you were watching him." My hand stopped over my notebook. "What time?" "Close to 1. "What did he say?" "He asked if I had talked to anybody about us." I did not speak. He said it casually. Tessa continued. "Like a joke," he said. "You wouldn't ever have somebody following me, right?" Then he laughed. "What did you say?" I said no. "Did he believe you?" "I don't know." That was when the case changed. I told her not to mention me, not to confront him, and not to ask questions about his work. She agreed, but frightened people agree to anything when fear is still fresh. Saturday night, I changed vehicles. I used an older gray Accord I kept for surveillance, the kind of car that disappears because no one wants to remember it. I dressed down, ball cap, plain shirt, no watch. I started 2 blocks away from Malik's house and waited. He left at 9:18 p.m. in the Charger. I followed from distance. He drove south, then east, then doubled back through residential streets near College Park. Not a full surveillance detection route. Not obvious, but enough to see if a tail stayed too close. I gave him space. At a red light on Edgewater Drive, I noticed a white Kia 2 cars behind me. It had been behind me near the last turn. That could mean nothing. By itself, every detail means nothing. That is why amateurs get paranoid and professionals get patient. I let Malik continue and turned right. The Kia turned right too. I drove 3 blocks, pulled into a gas station, and parked near the air pump. The Kia passed without slowing. I waited 2 minutes, then resumed. I picked Malik up again near a warehouse district. That was the first time I wondered whether I had actually lost him, or whether he had allowed himself to be found again. He parked outside a fenced lot with 2 box trucks inside. A man opened the gate before Malik even rolled down his window. The Charger entered. Gate closed. I parked 2 lots away beside a building with faded signage and lifted my camera. Through gaps in the fence, I saw Malik step out and speak to a short man in a red cap. Behind them, 3 others unloaded plastic storage totes from one of the trucks. The totes were uniform, dark gray, and unmarked. Then Malik turned his head, not toward me directly, toward the stretch of road where I sat. He could not have seen my face. I knew that. Between distance, darkness, angle, and tinted glass, there was no reason to think he had identified me. Still, he kept looking, not searching, waiting. I lowered the camera. A minute later, the white Kia rolled past in the opposite direction. I did not move until it was gone. On Sunday, I reviewed everything. Photos, times, routes, vehicle changes, associate descriptions, location clusters. Tessa had not hired me to build a criminal intelligence report, but that was what the case had become. I wrote the phrase structured activity inconsistent with domestic infidelity in my notes, then stared at it longer than I should have. A newer investigator might have kept pushing because evidence is addictive. Every unanswered question feels like a debt. Every strange pattern feels like an invitation. But I had spent years watching theft crews get overconfident, and I knew the moment a person stops hiding from the camera, they have either made a mistake or changed the game. Monday night proved which one it was. Malik left his house at 10:06 p.m. in the silver Tahoe. I followed from far back. He drove to a commercial lot near the edge of an industrial area, not far from South Orange Avenue. The lot served a row of small businesses that were closed for the night. Print shop, cabinet supplier, private courier office, a place that repaired restaurant equipment. The lights were bad, not absent. Worse than absent, scattered. Enough illumination to create blind spots. Malik parked near the courier office. Two men were already there, standing beside a dark SUV. He spoke to them for 6 minutes. No exchange visible, no bags, no boxes. Then all three looked toward the road at the same time. I was parked across the street, angled behind a utility pole. Engine running, camera down. Not a good feeling. Malik got back into the Tahoe. The SUV left first. Malik followed. I waited, counted 30 seconds, then pulled out. A pickup truck turned in behind me immediately. Too close. I took the next right. The pickup took it too. I took another right. Same. There is a specific kind of calm that comes over you when uncertainty disappears. It does not feel brave. It feels like a checklist clearing itself. I was being followed. I drove toward a busier road, but before I reached it, a dark sedan pulled out from a side street and slowed ahead of me. The pickup tightened behind, boxed loosely, not fully. Testing reaction. I did not speed. Speed confirms fear. I turned into a gas station with an open convenience store and bright pumps. The sedan continued past. The pickup pulled in behind me and parked at a pump. A man got out. White t-shirt, dark jeans, baseball cap. He did not pump gas. He looked at me through my windshield. Then he smiled. I took out my phone and pretended to make a call while photographing him through the side mirror. He lifted his hand, not waving, showing me he had seen the camera. Then he got back into the pickup and left. I should have terminated that night. Instead, I made the mistake most people make when they survive the first warning. I treated survival as information. I told myself I had control because I had recognized the counter-surveillance. I told myself I would run one more night, collect enough to justify closing the case properly, and present Tessa with clear recommendations. That is how bad decisions sound when you dress them professionally. Tuesday night, I changed everything. Different vehicle, different clothing, different start time. I did not begin at Malik's house. I staged near a location he had used twice, a storage facility west of John Young Parkway. If he appeared, I would document from distance. If he did not, I would leave. At 11:31 p.m., the white van arrived. Malik was not driving. A heavy-set man with a shaved head entered the gate using the code. 12 minutes later, the black Charger pulled in from the opposite direction and parked outside. Malik stepped out. He stood beside the Charger and looked down the road. Then he took out his phone. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I did not answer. The ringing stopped. A text appeared. Nice Accord. I was not in the Accord. My stomach went cold. Another text came through. Nice Civic too. That was the car I was sitting in. Malik looked up from his phone and stared directly toward my position. I started the engine. That was when headlights came on behind me. A vehicle had been parked dark in the lot of a closed plumbing supply business 20 yards back. I had missed it because it was tucked against the building, black paint against black glass. The headlights filled my rearview mirror. At the same time, another car turned in from the street and stopped across the exit. Not speeding, not screeching, just stopping. The space around me became smaller. 3 men approached. One from the driver's side, one from the passenger side, one from the rear. No shouting, no threats, no guns visible. That made it worse. People who want to scare you make noise. People who want to identify you stay quiet. I locked the doors. The man at the driver's side wore a gray hoodie. He held a flashlight low, pointed at my window, but not shining it directly yet. The man behind me moved toward the plate. The man on the passenger side leaned down, trying to see through the tint. I had maybe 3 seconds before they had my face clearly, my tag clearly, and enough space blocked to pull me out if that was the plan. I threw the car into reverse. The rear camera flashed on, useless glare in motion. The man behind me jumped sideways. I hit the gas hard enough to make the tires bark. The Civic slammed backward, clipping something metal, maybe a bumper, maybe a cart. I still don't know. The rear of the car jumped. The man at the driver's side struck the window with the flashlight, not breaking it, but hard enough to leave a white mark across the glass. I cut the wheel, shifted into drive, and aimed for the gap between the blocking car and a concrete curb. There was not enough room. I took it anyway. The passenger side scraped hard, metal screaming against concrete. The mirror folded in with a crack. Someone hit the rear quarter panel as I passed. I heard yelling then, finally, but by then I was already out of the lot. I drove without thinking for the first mile. Then training came back. Do not go home. Do not go straight to the office. Do not pull over somewhere isolated. I headed toward the nearest police substation, not because I planned to file a full report, but because people following you tend to avoid well-lit government buildings. No one followed. That was almost worse. I parked under a light, hands still locked on the wheel, breathing through my nose until I could feel my fingers again. The Civic was damaged on both sides. Passenger mirror cracked. Rear bumper torn loose. Driver window marked from the flashlight. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One image. A photo of me sitting in the car, taken from outside the driver's side window. My face visible through the glass. The timestamp was from 40 minutes earlier, before the ambush, before I knew they were there. Under the photo was a message. Confirmed. I did not sleep that night. At 7:30 the next morning, Tessa called. He was normal last night, she said before I could speak. He came over after midnight. He brought breakfast stuff, like nothing happened. I closed my eyes. Tessa, listen to me carefully. This investigation is no longer about infidelity. There was silence. What does that mean? Notice, it means you need to stop asking him questions. Do not confront him. Do not mention me. Do not mention this case to anyone connected to him. Vincent, you're scaring me. You hired me to find out whether he was cheating. I did not find evidence of that. Then what did you find? I looked at the photo on my phone. My own face, caught in the dark. I found enough to tell you to leave without making it look like leaving. She started crying then, quietly at first, then harder. I knew something was wrong, she said. I knew it. Do you have somewhere you can go? My sister's in Lake Mary. Good. Do not pack everything. Do not announce it. Create a normal reason. Work issue. Family issue. Anything. But do not make it dramatic. What about the report? There won't be a full report. What? I'm terminating the case. She said my name like I had stepped away from her in a burning building. Vincent, I'm telling you this because it is the safest answer I can give you. You do not need proof anymore. You need distance. After we hung up, I wrote the closure notice, but did not send it. I kept reading it, changing words, removing details. Every version felt either too vague to be useful or too specific to be dangerous. At noon, I reviewed the previous week's footage. That was when I noticed the shift in Malik's behavior after the ambush. He was not hiding. He drove openly. He used the same Tahoe twice in a row. He met people in visible lots, under lights, in places where cameras could catch him if anyone knew where to look. Once, outside a coffee shop near downtown, he turned toward the street and lifted his hand in a small greeting, not to someone near him. To the camera angle I would have used if I had still been there. That was the moment I understood the investigation had inverted. I was no longer documenting him. He was documenting whether I was still watching. I sent Tessa a final message from a clean, professional version of myself that did not show what my hands had felt like on the wheel that night. I am formally terminating surveillance due to safety concerns unrelated to the original domestic scope. I strongly recommend no confrontation and no further inquiry into the subject's activities, she replied 20 minutes later. Did he hurt you? I typed and deleted 3 different answers. Finally, I wrote, no, but the risk profile changed. That night, I drove in loops before going home. I took I-4 East, got off, doubled back, drove through 2 busy plazas, stopped at a grocery store, went inside, came out through a different exit, waited near the carts, watched reflections in the glass. No tail, no white Kia, no pickup, no Charger, no Tahoe. By the time I reached my apartment complex, it was almost 11 p.m. The lot was quiet. Sprinklers clicked against the grass near the entrance. Someone's TV flickered blue behind vertical blinds on the 2nd floor. I parked far from my building and sat with the engine off. Nothing moved. I got out, walked to my mailbox, and unlocked it. Inside was a plain envelope, no stamp, no return address. Just my name, not printed, written. Vincent Capone. I stood there under the weak mailroom light, with the key still in my hand, listening to the buzz of the fixture overhead. I knew before I opened it. Still, I opened it. Inside were 5 pages. No thread at first. That was what made it worse. The first page had my full legal name, date of birth, old Baltimore address, current Orlando address, my business registration, my PI license number. The second page listed my vehicles, the Accord, the Civic, my personal truck, plate numbers, insurance carrier. The third page had photographs, me entering my office, me walking out of a Publix, me sitting in the Accord during the first night of surveillance, me outside Tessa's apartment building after the initial briefing. The fourth page was a printed screenshot of my own website, my headshot circled in black marker. The fifth page had one sentence centered in the middle. You're good at watching people. Stop watching me. No signature, no name, none needed. I did not feel brave when I read it. I did not feel afraid in the way people think fear feels. I felt something colder than that. Recognition. The kind you feel when you look at a locked door and realize someone has already been inside. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and left through the back stairwell. I drove to a hotel near the airport and paid for the room with a card I did not use for business. In the morning, I closed the case. No expanded report, no evidence packet, no final invoice beyond what had already been paid. I told myself that was professional judgment. It was. But it was also surrender. A week later, Tessa emailed me from a new address. The message was short. I'm staying with my sister. I ended it by text. He only replied once. Below that, she pasted Malik's response. Smart. I never heard from her again. I saw Malik once after that, about 3 months later, near a restaurant on Sand Lake Road. I was not working. I was meeting someone for lunch. He came out of the restaurant with 2 men behind him and stopped near the valet stand. He looked older in daylight, calm, ordinary. Then he turned his head and saw me. For a second, neither of us moved. He did not smile. He did not nod. He just looked at me with the flat patience of someone who had already decided I was no longer a problem. Then the valet brought up a black SUV. Malik got in. The SUV pulled away. I stood there with my keys in my hand, watching until traffic swallowed it. I still have the envelope. Not in my office, not with the case files. Some things you keep separate because they are not evidence anymore. They are reminders. The official closure note in my system is only 1 line. Subject exhibited counter-surveillance. Investigation terminated for safety reasons. That is the clean version. The version, I would say, under oath. The truth is less professional. The truth is that I was hired to find out if a woman's boyfriend was cheating. And by the end of the week, he knew my vehicles, my address, my license, my habits, my blind spots, and the exact moment I realized he had let me follow him long enough to learn all of it. Story 3. Subject history could not be verified. Background investigations are supposed to be the cleanest work in this field. No late nights sitting in parked cars. No guessing intentions from body language. No waiting for someone to slip up. Everything is structured, documented, confirmed. Identity, employment, education, addresses, references. You verify what exists, or you confirm what doesn't. My name is John Jones. I've been doing background investigations for a little over 8 years, most of that in Tampa, Florida. Before that, I did contract work, pulling records and assisting on civil cases. Mostly boring, mostly predictable. I built a reputation for being thorough, which is just another way of saying, I don't trust anything until I can trace it back to its origin. That last part matters more than people realize, because a clean record means nothing if you don't know where it started. The case came in through a law firm downtown, mid-sized, corporate litigation, the kind of place that hires people with spotless resumes and expects them to stay that way. They were bringing in a candidate for a senior financial position, someone who would have access to internal accounts, client funds, and operational oversight. They wanted a full background, standard scope, identity verification, employment history, education, credit, civil records, references, address history. The subject's name was Daniel Harker, 38 years old, no criminal record, no civil disputes of note, solid employment history with progressive advancement through mid-tier financial firms. Bachelor's degree in economics from a university in North Carolina, master's degree from a private institution in Georgia. On paper, it was one of the cleanest files I'd ever seen. Too clean. Not in the way amateurs think, where a lack of incidents raises suspicion. Plenty of people live quiet lives. Plenty of people build stable careers, but even stable lives leave texture. Small inconsistencies. Overlaps. Gaps that are explainable but still present. A job that ran a month longer on one record than another. A reference who hesitates before answering. A landlord who remembers a detail the paperwork doesn't. Daniel Harker's file had none of that. Everything aligned. Perfectly. That's where I started. I confirmed his social security number against standard databases. It returned valid. Issued in Virginia. No anomalies in issuance pattern. Driver's license, Florida. Current. No flags. Credit report. Clean. Not empty, not overloaded. Balanced. Loans, payments, utilization, all within normal ranges. I moved to employment. His most recent position was with a financial services company in Atlanta. I called HR. This is John Jones. I'm conducting a background verification for Daniel Harker. Yes, he worked here, the HR representative said. Senior analyst, then team lead. Employed from June 2017 to March 2024. Can you confirm supervisor? There was a pause. Not long, just enough to notice. One moment. Keys tapped faintly in the background. Supervisor listed as Mark Ellison. Is he available? No longer with the company. Anyone else who can speak to Harker's performance directly? We can only confirm employment and position, she said. Standard answer, not unusual. I made a note and moved on. Second employer, Charlotte, North Carolina. Same result. He worked here. Can you confirm supervisor? Not available. Anyone who worked with him directly. We can only confirm employment. Again, not unusual by itself. Companies protect themselves. Still, I noted the pattern. I moved to references. 3 listed. A former colleague. A supervisor. A personal reference. The first call went to a man named Kevin Ralston. Yeah, Daniel, Kevin said when I introduced myself. Great guy. Very detail-oriented. Reliable. You can trust him with anything. How long did you work together? I asked. About 3 years. What was your role? Senior associate. What kind of work did you do together? Financial analysis. Forecasting. Reports. Any issues with performance? No, none at all. Like I said, very detail-oriented. Reliable. You can trust him with anything. The phrasing was identical to what he had said earlier. That happens sometimes. People repeat themselves when they're not used to interviews. Still, I wrote it down exactly. The second reference, listed as a former supervisor, gave me nearly the same response. Not similar. Same structure, same adjectives, same order. Very detail-oriented. Reliable. You can trust him with anything. By the third call, I knew what I was listening for. The personal reference, a woman named Angela Pierce, answered on the second ring. Daniel? She said when I explained the call. Oh, he's wonderful. Very detail-oriented. Reliable. You can trust him with anything. I did not write it down this time. I already had it. Miss Pierce, I said. How do you know him? We've been friends for years. Where did you meet? There was a pause. At. Through work. Mutual connections. What kind of work? Finance, she said, a little too quickly. Do you recall when you met? About 5 years ago. Her voice was steady, but something underneath it felt rehearsed. Not nervous. Prepared. I ended the call and leaned back in my chair. 3 references. 3 identical phrases. 3 people who claimed different relationships to the same man. No variation, no hesitation, no personal detail beyond what would look good on paper. That was when I started digging manually. Addresses next. Daniel's history showed 5 addresses over the past 10 years, all in expected locations based on employment. I drove to the Tampa address listed as his current residence, a condo complex near the bay. Clean, well-maintained. Assigned parking. I knocked on the neighbor's door. A man in his 60s answered, wearing a Tampa Bay Rays shirt and holding a coffee mug. Morning, I said. I'm trying to verify a resident next door, Daniel Harker. The man frowned slightly. I think someone lives there, he said. You don't know him? I've seen someone come and go, he said, but I don't really talk to people much. How long have you lived here? 3 years. And he's been there that whole time? He shrugged. Couldn't tell you. People move in and out. I thanked him and went to the unit on the other side. A younger woman answered, maybe late 20s. Daniel Harker? She repeated. I don't think so. He lives in the unit between you and the gentleman I just spoke to. Oh, she said. I've never met him. How long have you been here? Almost 2 years. You've never seen him? I mean, I've seen someone go in and out, but I don't know his name. That was not impossible. People in cities live beside each other for years without interaction. Still, I noted it. I repeated the process at his previous address in Atlanta. Different neighbors. Same answers. Someone lived there. No one knew him. No one could give me a single personal detail. No late-night noise complaints. No packages left at the wrong door. No borrowed tools. Nothing. Just a person-shaped absence moving through verified spaces. I went back to the office and pulled his education records. The university in North Carolina confirmed his degree. Yes, Daniel Harker graduated in 2010, the registrar's office said. Can you provide enrollment dates? One moment. Keys again. Enrollment from August 2006 to May 2010. Can you confirm major? Economics. Any disciplinary records? We do not disclose that information. Understood. Can you provide a transcript? We can send an official transcript to the requesting party. I requested it. Then I asked a different question. Do you have archived enrollment records beyond the transcript, course registrations, housing, student ID logs? We only maintain digital transcripts for alumni verification, she said. Nothing else? Not readily accessible. I hung up. That was when the pattern became clear. Everything existed at the surface level. Everything you would need to pass a background check. Nothing you would use to understand a person. I opened my case file and started writing notes. Not conclusions. Observations. All records confirm existence. None confirm presence. I saved the file. Timestamp, 2:14 p.m. I left for lunch. When I came back at 3:02, the file was still open on my screen. But something had changed. A new line had been added beneath my last note. Initial contact confirmed earlier than documented. I stared at it. I did not write that. I checked the edit history. The file showed it had been modified at 2:38 p.m. I was not in the office at 2:38 p.m. I checked the security camera feed for the hallway outside my office. No one had entered. I checked my door. Still locked. I sat down slowly. Fatigue can do strange things. Long hours, repetitive work. You start to blur actions together. Write something and forget you wrote it. I told myself that. Then I checked my call log. There was an outgoing call at 2:36 p.m. to Daniel Harker. I did not remember making that call. Duration: 12 seconds. I played the recording. Silence. No greeting. No voice. Just the faint sound of an open line. Then a click. Call ended. I did not like that. Still, I kept working. Because stopping without explanation is not how this job works. I requested archived records from the Georgia institution where he supposedly earned his master's degree. The request went through. The confirmation email arrived. Then, 5 minutes later, I received a second email. Your request has been fulfilled. That was too fast. I opened the attachment. A transcript. Clean. Courses. Grades. Degree awarded. I checked the metadata. Created at 2:41 p.m. Modified at 2:41 p.m. I refreshed the email. The message disappeared. Gone from inbox. Gone from sent. Gone from trash. I sat there, with the transcript open on my screen, and felt something settle in the room that had nothing to do with temperature. At 4:17 p.m., I received an email from the law firm. Subject: background check completion. I had not submitted anything yet. I opened it. John: thank you for your thorough verification of Mr. Harker's background. Based on your report, we are proceeding with onboarding. Appreciate the quick turnaround. Best. Corey Daniels. Attached was a PDF. My report. Complete. Formatted in my template. My header. My case number. My signature. I opened it. Every section filled. Identity verified. Employment verified. Education verified. References confirmed. Address history confirmed. No discrepancies. No concerns. At the bottom, above my signature, was the final line. All aspects of subject history have been independently confirmed. I checked the timestamp. Submitted. 1:03 p.m. Assigned to me at 1:22 p.m. I had submitted the report before I was assigned the case. I called Corey Daniels immediately. Corey, it's John. Did you send that email? Yeah, he said. We got your report. Looks good. I didn't send that report. There was a pause. What do you mean? I mean, I'm still working the case. I haven't submitted anything. Another pause. Then, quieter. John, the report came from your email. I pulled up my sent folder. There it was. 1:03 p.m. to Corey Daniels. Attachment included. I opened it again. Same document, same signature. I checked the IP log. It showed my office network. I looked around the room. Everything was where I left it. Chair, desk, laptop, case files. Nothing out of place. Nothing disturbed. John, Corey said, I need you to hold off on onboarding, I said. There's an issue with the verification. We already moved forward, he replied. He starts Monday. Corey, listen to me. Something is wrong with this file. What kind of wrong? I searched for a word that would not sound insane. Incomplete, I said finally. He exhaled. John, your report says everything's verified. I know what it says. Then what are we talking about? I closed my eyes. We're talking about records that exist without origin. Silence. Then, Corey said, John, I trust your work. That's why we hired you. But I also have a hire starting in 4 days based on your report. I didn't send that report. Then who did? I did not answer. Because I did not have one that made sense. After the call, I sat in my office until the building emptied out. By 7 p.m., the hallway lights dimmed. By 8, the parking lot was mostly dark. I opened the case file one more time. The line I had not written was still there. Initial contact, confirmed earlier than documented. I placed the cursor at the end of it and hit delete. The line disappeared. I saved the file. I closed it. I reopened it. The line was back, exactly where it had been. I did not touch the keyboard again. Instead, I scrolled down. At the bottom of the document, beneath my signature, a new line had appeared, one I had not seen before. Verification is not required when the record already exists. I shut the laptop. Not gently. I powered it down and sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the faint hum of the building's HVAC system and the distant sound of traffic on the main road. At 9:12 p.m., my office phone rang. I let it ring. It rang again and again. On the fourth ring, I picked up. John Jones, I said. For a moment, nothing. Then a man's voice, calm, measured. This is Daniel. I did not speak. I believe you had a few questions, he said. My throat felt dry. Who is this? I asked, even though I knew. Daniel Harker. The line was clear, too clear. No background noise, no distortion. Where are you calling from? I asked. A pause. Then, from the record. The line clicked. Call ended. I sat there with the receiver in my hand, staring at nothing. Then I slowly placed it back on the cradle. I did not follow up. I did not amend the report. I did not contact the law firm again, because whatever had submitted that document did not need my permission to exist. And whatever Daniel Harker was, he did not need verification to become real. The case remains closed, not resolved. Closed. The official note in my system reads, subject history could not be independently verified. Client proceeded based on submitted documentation. That is the version that fits inside a report. The truth is simpler. I was hired to confirm a man's past, and instead, I watched a past appear where none had ever been. You have reached the end of tonight's surveillance, the point where the reports are closed, the footage is archived, and the details that felt routine while you were documenting them begin to feel far more unsettling once you step away and try to make sense of them. A missing person case, a domestic surveillance assignment, a standard background investigation, all structured, all controlled, all built on the assumption that if you follow the process closely enough, the truth will eventually reveal itself in a way that makes sense. But if anything followed you out of these stories, if any detail stayed with you longer than it should have, it is because the horror was never only in what was being investigated. It was in the moment each investigator realized the case had stopped behaving normally. A man named Elton Buick, working a disappearance outside Las Vegas, where confirmed sightings began to overlap, and every person who saw the missing girl was paid to describe exactly what they witnessed. Nothing more. A private investigator named Vincent Capone, conducting surveillance in Orlando, where a routine infidelity case revealed a subject who was not avoiding observation, but adjusting to it, until the investigation itself became something he was already aware of, long before it began. And John Jones, verifying a financial background in Tampa, where a complete identity held together under every check, every record, every system, without ever leading back to a point where that identity actually started. The most disturbing private investigator cases are not always about what you uncover. Sometimes they are about what continues to exist no matter how closely you examine it. Sometimes they are about when observation stops being one-sided. And sometimes they begin with the simple belief that process, experience, and documentation are enough to keep a case understandable. We are taught to trust the process. Your notes, your timestamps, your footage, your interviews, the structure that turns uncertainty into something measurable. But process is not control. A timeline can still contradict itself. A subject can still recognize you before you recognize them. A record can still exist without ever having a real origin. And something irreversible can still be moving through a case long before you realize you are no longer the one guiding it. So, if you take anything from tonight, let it be this. Do not confuse documentation with understanding. Do not confuse access to information with control. And do not assume a case is contained just because it fits inside a report. Because sometimes the most dangerous situations are not the ones that escalate visibly. Sometimes they remain structured, sometimes they remain quiet, and sometimes they wait until everything looks routine before they reveal that the investigation was never yours to control in the first place. A disappearance on the outskirts of Las Vegas. A surveillance case in Orlando that turned the lens back on the investigator. A background check in Tampa where the record existed before it was ever verified. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stories about ordinary work, controlled environments, and the exact moment a process stops protecting you and starts exposing you. Let me know in the comments which story stayed with you the longest. Elton Buick in Las Vegas, Vincent Capone in Orlando, or John Jones in Tampa. And if you have your own experience, a case that stopped making sense, a subject that knew more than they should have, or a moment where the work became something you could not explain, you can always share it. The business email is in the channel bio. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying with the quiet tension that builds when observation turns in on itself. And until next time, watch the details, trust what doesn't align, and remember, a case does not have to break the rules to become dangerous. And remember, the dark awaits.